And I say little children because you know what little children are like? They don't walk along the road like this, like you and I. Do they? They avoid the cracks in the pavements. They skip. They walk backwards. They walk on walls. They swing on anything they see. Where has that gone? Some of you still do that, I know. But it's when you're pissed, right? But our natural instinct on that side is to experiment, is never to see a challenge as insurmountable. Do you know how many times a child falls on average when it's learning to walk? 234 times. How many times did you fall before you said, well, the bolder amongst you will say, I'm not going to be very good at this. But most people will say, I can't do that, and stop it. And there was this architect called Jaime Lerner, who had this passionate vision of a city designed for people. And he set about achieving this vision. So the first thing he did was he ran for office. So he became the equivalent of a councillor in Brazil. And his vision was so powerful, he became a magnet for people. And he was elected mayor. And he has turned that city around. He's turned it into one of the most revered eco-cities in the world. I'll tell you a couple of things that he did that show his approach was not to accept any challenge as insurmountable, but to take it on and to be a bit imaginative about it. One was the problem of the slum dwellers, because the slum dwellers lived on the floodplains, so their homes were washed away every year, and they had very low priority about where they put their waste. Let's be honest. If you're living in abject poverty, recycling is not your number one issue, is it? But Mayor Jaime Lerner went out and he spoke to them and he said, I want you to recycle all your waste. And they said, But he said, in exchange, I will give you food and I will give you football tickets. The other thing he did was he said to his planning department, how long does it take to pedestrianise a precinct, pedestrianise a street? And they said, about 3 months, 6 months. Fast is better than slow. He said, I want it done in 48 hours. Did they do it in 48 hours? Yes, they did. And the impact was amazing. Because on the Monday morning, people were sitting on benches, eating their sandwiches. Children were not tethered to their parents' arms. They were relaxing. They were strolling up and down. Children were wandering freely and avoiding the cracks in the pavements and jumping and skipping. But more importantly, people were looking in the shop windows. And by the way, they were spending more money. The next day, the shopkeepers from all the neighbouring areas came in and said, we want some of that. Look what's happening. Look what's happening. You've created something entirely different here. Now, the reason I mention that is Jaime Lerner was asked, how did he achieve this extraordinary turnaround where GDP in the city went up, where average earnings went up, where 98% of the population said, we want to live in Curitiba for the rest of our lives because we're happy with. But here's the rub. 70% of the population of Sao Paulo also said they wanted to live in Curitiba. That'd be like the population of Glasgow saying they want to live in Edinburgh. It ain't going to happen. But he said 3 things. One is take a 0 off the budget and you have creativity. Take 2 zeros off the budget and you've got genuine sustainability. But he said you have to beat off the complexity sellers. Those people always find there is a reason not to do things or not to do things as fast as you might want to. People that think we have to set up a process, a system. People that think, well, we normally take about 6 months to develop a new idea and implement it. He couldn't have afforded that because it wouldn't have happened. People would have lost trust in his determination.
Of that, when I arrived in the building site in London in Earl's Court, and there was a big Welsh foreman who greeted me, and he had a soft hat and a broken nose. He looked like he'd done 5 rounds with Floyd Patterson, who was a boxer at the time. And he put his arm around me and he said, Michael, welcome. And I thought, I've been welcomed. This is extraordinary. And he said, before you start, I want to show you something. And he showed me into this hut. And he showed me the plans, the elevation. And he says, this is the palace you're building. And I thought, I'm building. I'm just a small bit part player. But from that day on, he made me feel that I was a vital part of this, enormous operation where we're building a palace. And that was a real awakening as well, because I realized then that his whole approach was one that motivated me and all the other members of the team. You would have thought there was a hierarchy. I was a labourer. But he said, without you, nothing will happen. And every day he would, clap me on the back and say, well done. If he saw something I could do better, he didn't say, stop doing it that way. He would say, I've got a trick. You can do this a wee bit better. So I realised at that point that motivation is something that should be in every workplace. Because why do you go to work in the morning if it's not with a sense of purpose and a sense of, high value and an energy that comes with that? But then,
can you imagine if Martin Luther King had stood on the Mount in Washington all those years and say, I have a strategic plan, how the course of history. Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, you can do it. And I like the idea of dreams and imagine. There's a language which inspires people, and there's a language which excludes them. So I was in Ontario a couple of years ago, and this guy who heads up the cultural strategy said, we bring in organizations to work together, to come up with new ideas and to create, 1 + 1 = 3 synergies. But he said what they do is they come in and they sit around and they represent their organization rather than representing their vision. So he said, what we do is we say to them, if you've come to represent your organization, we don't want you here. We want you to come here and lead ideas, to lead us to this vision. Focus on where we want to be. They get right down to it, don't they? They don't say, where's the budget coming from? Or we've got a resource issue here. Or we need 200 GSM paper and a special kind of acrylic paint before we can start. And by the way, it's 4:45, so we're going to put this off till tomorrow morning. Children don't do that. They get down to it straight away. And they designed this beautiful playground in bright colours. And they had a professional designer come in and negotiate with them about the finished design. And the professional designer said, actually, it's lovely. All I would do is perhaps move some things around, just for spatial safety reasons. He said, for example, if you're coming down this amazing chute that you've drawn, you don't want someone on a swing bumping into them. The children says, actually, we do. But he stayed true to the children's design. And then they brought engineering students in from the local college. This is collaboration. And they asked them if they could add value to this playground. And the result is, every time a child uses the playground, using kinetic energy, they're generating electricity for the local community. That's collaboration.
the first thing is passion and enthusiasm. The second thing is authenticity. I don't talk about things I don't know about, right? I talk from my own experience, and I might supplement that with things that I've seen and people I've met. And that authenticity is really important, because I suppose I could take any subject and say, I'm going to speak on this tomorrow, but how much of me is in there? Not a lot. The next thing is, I think you need a sense of theatre. You need to surprise people. You need to have unpredictability about it, and you need to tell stories. I mean, I equate, standing up and delivering a speech as the same as seeing a great film. Yeah, it's a story, but it surprises you. It challenges you. It might frighten you. I don't go out to frighten people, but you want it to inspire people. You want them to see the world in a different way.
Doesn't really represent what I think is now the business community, which is much more about people wanting to give back and want to do something that's got a positive impact on their community.
It's a lot about big life changes that have happened to people as well. So given that, you know, it wasn't that long ago we were in a financial crisis, 8 years ago, so that can make a big difference to people as well, can't it? That they're forced into doing something else because they're perhaps made redundant.
Yes, I mean, adversity is a great driver. And, you know, I had a business that was very successful, and, you know, 2008 came and I lost, you know, a lot of money. So I was faced with a choice then to give up or to start again. And I chose absolutely to start again because I felt that running the business, and I've had a pretty, you know, varied life, almost going into a book this year, because what do I do with all that experience, all the knowledge I've gained? Well, you use it to help other people to find their strengths and to turn their, what might be perceived as a disadvantage, into an advantage.
Children are not just the future, they are the present. Thank you very much indeed.